Littlestown area School Board Directors. This is a meeting of the board taking place in public and according to the Sunshine Act. District residents who need to address the board are required to sign up and provide public comment at least 5 minutes prior to the starting of the meeting. Public participation will occur only in the designated public comment portion of the agenda. Disruptions, interruptions, outbursts, or any other disorderly conduct of any kind will not be tolerated. By attending and or commenting publicly in the meeting, you are consenting to the district's recording, retention, and future viewing of this meeting. This meeting is also being live streamed as a convenience to the public. In event live stream fails or cannot be transmitted for any reason, the in-person meeting will continue without interruption. Tom, would you please call?
Alec McCall.
Here.
Nick Lovell. Here. Jeannie Ewan.
Here.
Al Ressler.
Here.
Dwayne Sullivan. Here. Stephen Yerger.
Here.
Donna Bayless.
Here.
Mary Brennan.
Here.
Rise to the pledge of allegiance and Moses. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now recognize members of the public who have signed up to provide comment as stipulated in policy 903. When your name is called, please approach the podium, state your name, confirm that you're a resident taxpayer of the district, topic of discussion for the record. Public comment is limited to the matters of district business only. Comments that are not relevant to district business or that may be before the board will be suspended. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer, not to individual board members or the administrators, and comments will be limited to 5 minutes or less. The privilege to speak may be interrupted, revoked, or recess of the meeting may be called by the chair if the speaker fails to adhere to board policy or does not observe reasonable decorum and orderly conduct. Thank you. Bradley Keith.
Good evening, my name is Brad Kiefer. I'm a taxpayer and resident of the district, and I want to start by saying something plainly before I get into numbers. The decisions in front of this board are not easy. Some of what I'm about to recommend involves eliminating positions held by people who work hard for this district and this community. I don't take that lightly. I want you to know that I've looked hard in every alternative way, and looking at all the data to come to this list. But the honest truth is that this district is in a structural deficit and we need some real decisions, not deferral. My answers may not be right, but they're real and at least worthy of consideration, and more real than what I've heard so far recommended. So let me spend most of my time tonight looking at a solution. The district faces a $2.64 million structural deficit, expenditures of $44.9 million against revenues of $42.2. The collective bargaining agreement is tied up. Things that we all know. The current plan that the board has entertained violates its own board policy 620. Without action, this problem grows into a $7 million deficit by 2030. So the problem has to start to be solved today. So year one recommendation. Dr. Berryman is promoted to superintendent. Dr. Moyer goes off into retirement, and that saves approximately $219,000 in loaded salary and benefits. Second, the executive assistant to the assistant superintendent position becomes redundant with no assistant superintendent that needs support. That saves $90K. Eliminate the director of educational services. The business administrator oversees all of that, and that saves about $200K in total compensation. Fourth, eliminate the director of transportation. The assistant business administrator assumes the contract oversight. That saves $124K. Eliminate one middle school assistant principal timed with the merger of the middle school and high school. That saves you $158K. Sixth, eliminate 2 IT technicians and possibly look for contractors to backfill if needed. That saves approximately $202K. Seventh, eliminate the facilities manager administrative assistant, absorb that into the business administrator's team. That saves $87K. Eighth, consolidate 1 additional support staff position through attrition. That saves another $91K. In total, real things equaling $1.17 million. Paired with the 2.5% tax increase, which generates $404K in new revenue, and adding a pay-to-play athletics fee like many surrounding districts at $250 per student generates about $90K, and a $400,000 transfer from the athletic capital reserve, which I know triggers the, but what about the track in a few years? That's fine, but we need to solve the problem at hand for education, not just athletics. All of this together finds a better balanced budget and passes a Policy 620 with a $604,000 margin. I want to be direct about the capital reserve transfer. Obviously, you're going to need to figure out if it's possible, so get a solicitor opinion, or think about the board policies that may not be completely public or easy to navigate. Year 2 requires a 3% tax increase, generating another $493K in cumulative additional revenue. It requires 4 teaching position reductions tied to declining enrollment at a loaded cost of $150K each. That's about $600,000. The board will need to follow Act 11 furlough procedures, and that process should start as soon as possible. Year 2 also requires this board to authorize 2 investigations. In my opinion, we need to look at the Lincoln Intermediate Unit and do a full audit. The district is paying $2.47 million annually to the LIU. It's up significantly, so let's look at it line by line to see where there may be duplicated services. Second, let's prepare for a rebid on the transportation contract. And then let's rebid that as soon as possible. With year 2's tax increase, the 4 teacher reductions, possibly finding money in the LIU audit and the rebid, we're projecting another $2.58 million. That passes Policy 620 with a $358,000 margin. The 4-year result requires $2.5 million next year, $3 million the following year, 3.5 and 3.5. This minimizes the cash flow impact to our community and makes it less aggressive and less abrupt. And pairing that with the other structural changes leads us to be in compliance and starts to solve this problem. I know this isn't comfortable. There's probably people in this room who are a little bit uneasy and may have just heard their name mentioned. And again, we're at a place where we need to lead with empathy, but also the board needs to lead with real decisions. I, as a taxpayer, am going to take an impact on this, but I'm recommending it anyway because the alternative is watching this district's financial position deteriorate until choices have to be made by a court or a state as if we let this play out. I appreciate the time and opportunity today, and I look forward to hearing your real resolution at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Just give me a Oh, sorry. I couldn't hear you. You're talking too quiet. I'm sorry. Teasing you. Okay. So I didn't prepare anything. I'm just going to speak a couple things. Appreciate Mr. Kiefer's time he took to put all those numbers together. That's a lot. My family has a lot of experience in the public school systems in Maryland and here. My husband's been a teacher in Carroll County. Can you give me a 4-minute? Because I'm not paying attention. Do you mind? Like, you're at 4 minutes, so you got 1 minute left, please. Thank you. He's been working there now, almost 30 years. If you want to see an administrative area that's overemployed, go down there. If my husband wanted to change the beneficiaries on his life insurance, there's one person he goes to meet with to do that. So when our daughter was born, he had that time to go see her to change the beneficiaries. Well then, if you wanted to add her to the insurance, there was another person that took care of that. This year, we're back on his insurance. We weren't for a long time, and I left the company I was with. He wanted to get an FSA. Well, do you know they wouldn't let him put money in an FSA unless they approved it and understood why he wanted to put money in that FSA? I worked for a health insurance company for 25 years. That's a problem with overhead, Mr. Kiefer. And I'm sorry I'm going to speak to you on this. We have a revenue problem. Look at us. I think we're midway in this county in terms of budget dollars, in terms of what we spend. We have a revenue problem. I'm not saying there aren't places we can cut. There aren't some things we can move around. I do think, and I've heard the board say this, that when we merge the 2 schools, there may be some opportunities here. Dr. Moyer may have said that. But I don't feel like eliminating positions off the top, especially in your administration, is going to help you here. Right now, I feel like you do a pretty good job meeting, at least met the needs of my family when it comes to learning parts and stuff like that, in terms of curriculum and stuff, so cutting that back, you're just gonna harm the students in the end. Should we look at LAU? Yes, it's ridiculous. But this goes back to a much larger problem, which is the growth of learning, the differences, and the needs to accommodate that, whether it be autism classrooms or whatever it is. Okay? That revenue problem, let me see, I did write down a couple of notes, so I wasn't totally off base. That revenue problem needs to be solved with changes really at the state level, quite honestly. A great question was asked, well, what can we really do about that? It is a great question because, I've been watching, I like watching Abbott Elementary on Hulu. Do you know that I see 3 cyber school advertisements every time I watch Abbott Elementary? One told me that they're going to teach my child how to do automotive so that she can stand out with the neighbor's dad and she can help him change the oil. This is what parents are being told about these cyber schools. These cyber schools are a problem. Sending funds to the cyber schools is the same as sending them to private schools and taking them away from the kids that need it most, where their parents can't stay at home so they can go to cyber school. And I have a major problem with that, because these are the people that need the most help. So yes, we need to speak up, and I'm going to speak at a future meeting about some ideas, but here's the great thing. We've got an election this year. We get to say who is going to represent HD 91. We've got Catherine Pratt, who sits in Gettysburg on the school board and understands this. And she was quoted in a recent article specifically saying, thank you. We have a revenue problem. We have a revenue problem everywhere, okay? I'm going to go to 2 things real quick in my last minute. The buses. I keep hearing the question, well, do we really need the buses or they're a discipline problem? Okay, you put 3 elementary kids in every seat on a bus. How's the bus driver even identifying the discipline issues? How are they doing that while they're looking on the street and making sure they don't hit a kid that walks out in the middle of the road? I mean, y'all have seen the craziness about the roads here and stuff. The point is, adding another bus when you have 4 to 5 buses overfilled is a preventative risk management measure. Forget this discipline stuff. And I think I covered it all. But we can do more about cyber schools, and I'm sorry, but I don't see anyone in this moment that should have their job cut. That's ridiculous.
Thank you. Okay.
Wait till Aaron gets up.
Okay. By the way, I want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you very much. This was very helpful.
All right, so we're going to go over a discussion tonight. So I'm going to, normally I save the non-budget items for last. We're going to flip that and try to get those out of the way first, since the budget discussion probably can take the majority of tonight. So we're going to jump first into what Mr. Alasakis presented, I believe, back in May. Go to the next slide there, Aaron, is the scoreboard. So right now we have an aging scoreboard at the stadium. Mr. Alasakis presented and got quotes for us for an existing vendor with Nevco. We've briefly discussed about this, getting the go-ahead to proceed, at least working with the vendor to get some more logistics and timing, the lead time on this to get it available and integrated for the fall sports is what is the crux of the ask of tonight. So we just want to have a brief discussion about what the board's, I guess, where they're at on the discussion of the scoreboard. Josh obviously will be asking some questions about the scoreboard, so Aaron can go to the next one here. So this is just a comparison of what our existing scoreboard looks like on the right, and then the proposal of the new scoreboard on the left. You saw the price there; it's estimated around $90,000, and then we have an additional $10,000 for infrastructure. So that would be electricity and/or data cables, any other additional ones for your market for that. So I just want to pause here, and we want to have a brief discussion about what the board thoughts are on an athletic scoreboard, waiting to proceed. So this would have been part of the athletic improvement plan for baseball and softball. We'll jump into baseball and softball scoreboard right after this, but I think the more urgent need was the stadium scoreboard. So we wanted to look, kind of bucket those out and see. So that was always part of that $750,000. It was always earmarked since that bid came in too high, we just want to make sure that is this something the board still wants to get on and have available for the fall season as originally intended, or is that not something the board's willing to do at this time?
Mr. Schildinger, Mr. Yerger, if I could make a suggestion while we've got Jeff and Victor here, it might be good just to hear from them about what are some of the major challenges with our current school board that might help guide the direction of the discussion. Does that make sense?
So Jeff presented that, we'll just recap what was provided.
All right. Well, good evening, board members. So when you look at those two scoreboards there, some of the challenges that we're facing right now is if you look closely at the old scoreboard, the scoreboard on the right, you can see some silver sort of piping above where it says bolts and guests and where it says down, yards to go, ball on a quarter. Victor and his team, when that scoreboard was moved from what was the football field down there, the baseball field, up to where it presently is in our new stadium, you could no longer see the bolts, guests, down, yards to go, ball on, etc. So Victor and his team put together some lighting structures to illuminate those words, because if not, all you would see would be what's in the black. And even when you are in the home bleachers, it's still difficult to see that. So that's one piece. Piece two is in the top portion in between both L's, where you see that. Right now, that is simply a yellowish sort of display. So I'm going to give you a really practical example. In graduation, to get all the names of the graduates up there and for to say congratulations class of 2026, we literally needed to climb a ladder up the back of the scoreboard, put a thumb drive into a panel in the back of the scoreboard, and on that thumb drive was the names of all the students that was downloaded to that thumb drive from a computer so that we can project the names up there. The same thing will happen when we get our sponsors and our vendors for the fall sports. Like, whoever we get, Labellas, name anybody. We're going to have to manually do that. That shouldn't be the case. Everything now is you put it into the computer, you hit a button because the software talks, and through Wi-Fi, it would project. For example, now if you look at the left scoreboard where it says touchdown, all of that would be part of the features that are in the new scoreboards. It would have touchdown, first down, penalty kick, whatever you want to say. Plus, then we can put the graphics up there that represent the company that is sponsoring or that we're in a partnership with, Kenny's, whoever, and in their colors. So that could roll across there. So not to mention, if you go back now to the old scoreboard, there is lighting in the black portions where you'd have the score and the ball down and all that is starting to go dead. That scoreboard is just old. If you go stand under it, you can see the paint is all peeling off. The vinyl bolts and the vinyl guest piece, that painting is all starting to come off. It's time for a new stadium scoreboard. So there's some of the major challenges that we are presently facing with that.
Mr. Alsakis, I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, I have two questions, if that's okay. I'm sorry. Is that right?
Yeah, I was just going to mention the sponsorship with WellSpan.
Oh, well, Mr. President, I'll give you one second.
Yeah.
If you see where it says sponsor area on the left scoreboard, presently, I worked all winter. When I first got here, I was told, hey, we need to get sponsors for the new scoreboard, get sponsors for the new scoreboard. We presently have a $25,000 sponsorship with WellSpan. WellSpan would go in that sponsor area probably across the bottom right now. In fact, they're giving us money because they wanted to get money through the FY20 from the FY, let's see here, we're going into the FY27, correct? They wanted to get their FY26 money in, so we already have $6,250 of their money, and we're expecting $6,250 more of their money to come. If we delay that project, I can't guarantee that we're going to have that $25K on the table, but I can guarantee that the prices that Thomas just showed are going to go up also. So we're going to potentially lose the $25K, and due to inflationary costs, we're probably going to have to pay more. So that's what's envisioned there. Plus, we could get panels up and down, like I know Thomas had it, for these reasons. We could get panels up and down the side, like quarter panels that we could work with sponsors and charge different amounts of money for. We can go 12.5 or 6.5, 12.5, 25, whatever for quarter, half, full displays that would be permanent up there to help offset the costs over time. Ms. President.
That was actually my first question, was, are we gonna lose the money if we don't do that now? Like, I know there was a donation, for the sponsorship. If we don't follow through with this, it sounds like we're not gonna have that $25,000.
I've been reluctant to call WellSpan to say, hey, the likelihood, I'm going to be very transparent, the likelihood of us having a scoreboard for this fall is very low, because the fabrication process of creating a custom scoreboard with the L, the installation, and all those pieces, until the board approves the budget probably around June 22nd or at the latest by June 30th, that isn't going to give us enough time. So what Thomas and I am asking is that the money then is just encumbered, and it is guaranteed that those monies are sitting there. And I can tell WellSpan that those monies are encumbered for a scoreboard, so that as soon as either they feel they can get a scoreboard in prior to winter and it getting cold, that's up to them. I didn't even ask this question. Or B, as soon as winter breaks and we get through the spring season and we hit May 1, we are putting a scoreboard up using FY27 money. Because we can't go through this process again because it keeps delaying the process. And like I said, then we may not have WellSpan and you're looking at inflationary costs. So, yeah.
And my second one's more just a comment too. I'm at a lot of events down there at the stadium, and there's been times where the scoreboard has actually just stopped working.
Yeah.
In the middle of a game, which is not convenient. So that's just basically a comment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would we still be able, if we got a WellSpan sign to fix to our current scoreboard, they give us the $25,000?
What are they giving us the $25,000 for then?
Well, we could put it aside for the future. I just don't know that if for me personally, I don't know if we're in a position this year with, you heard the same as I did, some pretty drastic things being proposed in terms of personnel and programs that we have to balance, put everything into perspective. And I just don't want us to lose that money. But if they gave it to us to put in a reserve for the future scoreboard, would that be an option if we got the sign now, put it up, and went ahead and started advertising for WellSpan and got that $25,000?
So you mean instead of a digital area in the new one, you have like a physical sign?
No, the physical sign for WellSpan is at the bottom. It says sponsor area.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about in our current one.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about, getting
We
some
would-
kind of physical sign? Like
It would be the same
like a banner or
physical
something.
sponsor sign to
Like a
put
banner
at the bottom.
or something.
My question is, this 25,000, is this a one-time, so every year, so it's a one-time deal?
Right.
It's like
It's a rather large
They're
donation.
spreading it across multiple funding, so right now we got, I think, 6250, so they're spreading that across multiple times, but it's gonna equate to 25,000, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's over a 4-year period, 6250 over 4 years.
So they're providing multiple,
So we would be fronting up more money, and that would be further.
and it would also give us time to get additional vendors, potentially additional vendors to then participate in time. So that's how most of the scoreboards are, they have vendors. Some vendors line up in overtime, and additionally, then essentially you're supposed to pay for itself or close to it, and that's kind of how it works. But yes, it is up for cost of the district.
Okay, historically, what kind of revenue does that look like?
So this would be the first time we've had this type of scoreboard to be able to generate some larger vendors of this fashion. So we're kind of in somewhat uncharted territory for Littlestown. We would leverage what other districts have done, and they've leveraged. We've always had some local vendors in our local stuff, so I can't give I'd have to research what the other districts have been able to secure.
I was just trying to get an idea of maybe.
Unless you have
No, but with that being said, presently the money that is generated using the small black area between the L's and the old scoreboards is for athletics, for discretionary funding, for various things, because there's no other way that the athletic department presently has a way to generate any type of revenue because of our structure here. Like we don't have just one athletic booster for various reasons. That's another whole discussion. But presently, the money that is generated from there goes into a scoreboard account. Then I have some discretion on how to use that money for various operational needs.
What is that currently bringing in?
Well, right now, I mean, for me this year, it was established prior to me arriving. I want to say it's about $500, I believe, is what a vendor or a partnership sort of goes with right now. But you know, as I work with partners over the summer, depending upon where we go, you know, we'll see. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Say, Jeff, stay there.
Yes.
Go right to the
Yeah.
baseball. So then, with the scoreboards also, with the same athletic field improvement plan, was to add an additional baseball scoreboard and a softball scoreboard. So it's kind of the same concept. These ones are brand new and would be a brand new thing here for Littlestown. We don't currently have scoreboards there. So this would be the same idea as is the district willing or want to provide these for those sports. The reason we have a mobile one for softball is due to the possibility of orienting the softball field in the future. It doesn't make sense to put a permanent solution in if that has to be removed, if the softball field would move in the future. So that's why there's a temporary solution shown at the moment instead of a permanent solution. So it's kind of the very same concept. This timing on this is a little different than the stadium scoreboard because that's used by sports across all seasons where baseball and softball are more specific of the timing. I guess we just want to go, are there any questions?
I have a question. So the softball is temporary. So we'd have to be looking at an additional monies in the future for a permanent one, or can we do something on wheels that is permanent, and then eventually when it's ready, the field, whatever way it ends up happening in the future, then that one can just be moved from the mobile part to the permanent spot?
We did talk about that, having one, I believe, attached to the shed, to look at structure, or having a somewhat permanent structure that can be torn down, but the scoreboard's a permanent scoreboard that can be then replaced when the permanent structure can be put in place. So we wouldn't entertain action right now. It's just this being shown because this is what kind of came out through our discussions, but if that's a possibility, we have to make sure it's structurally sound, and that's kind of like, sometimes that might take some engineering and stuff, so that takes additional cost. So we didn't want to go too far down the pathway with that because we weren't sure how that would work. So the mobile option was the easiest to fulfill our needs. That's why we chose that one.
Is there money already set aside for these two and the football?
So the $750 for the land sale. So right now we currently have 475 of that 750 was earmarked for all improvements, baseball and softball, and the stadium scoreboard. That's hence why we're bringing it back, because it is part of that bucket of that 750. We know the tire improvement fell through, but the scoreboards are always pulled out to work with a vendor to get the best price, because doing it through a bid, that was a recommendation to pull that out because you can get a better price if you do that on your own. And that's where we went through, we found that it was going to be timed up right after the baseball and softball improvements, like I said, that fell through. So now the timing has come back around. So Charles Hopkins put that back in May. We're kind of right after the end of that. We're circling back around just to see what the discussion is and where we're at from the board standpoint, if we're willing to continue down this pathway or not.
I probably hear from everybody what you're thinking at the moment. Ally, do you have any thoughts?
Not yet.
Wayne?
I don't think we should be spending anything above and beyond what we have for this year.
All right. He said, he made a statement, said we shouldn't be spending any money.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I'd love to have a scoreboard, I'd love to have a big, beautiful scoreboard, but this year, with our budget situation, we just need.
Don?
we have to cut. So, just my opinion, I don't know where we're gonna find the money to purchase it.
No?
Mr. Shoemaker just told us that there is money set aside from the land sale, so I think we should do it.
Mary?
I think not.
Okay, we've heard from everybody except for Jeannie and myself. And,
I'd like to see the scoreboards, if there's money set aside.
I don't feel like at this time we have money in the budget.
We're talking about just these or all three of them?
You'd be all three.
All three.
You can do them individually if you're for one over another, but it's essentially any of those options.
Yep. Nope.
Alright,
Thank you.
Moving forward. The next one, I believe Mr. Yoder has already talked about this, is the ECTI land sale. So this will be on a resolution, two resolutions will be on the board agenda for review and approval at this month's meeting as a request by ECTI. So we did find land, for a purchase price of $1.7 million. They have $500,000 from the county commissioners, to purchase that land. So $1.2 million is needed from the member districts. We have 5 member districts, one of them being Littlestown. So our portion is approximately $181,320. So the question is, how would we pay for that? That would be coming from that $700,000 fund balance we have assigned to ACTI, which I noted that would be typically used for land and then transition into their debt service or any other needs that ACTI would have. So we have, I only have a brief amount of information, so maybe Dr. Moyer or Mr. can fill in if we have specific questions about this. Just to note that the resolution will show $2 million, but the purchase price was 1.7. That's just to cover, to make sure if there's any additional expenses that were unforeseen, to make sure they have enough. If they lock themselves at 1.7, something come through that would kind of break. So that's a very typical thing. We did that when we did our bond, to make sure you cover all fees and expenses that you foreseen, not have wiggle room for that. So that was just a note. If there's any questions about that, that is a standard practice.
So the land's already been purchased then?
It is.
Under contract.
Yes, so it's not technically been physically purchased. There's a lot they have to get through legality wise and studies and whatnot they have to do, but essentially, yes, it's under contract.
I'm so confused because all the different meetings that we've had, there's been zero update really from ACTE. And all of a sudden now we have a land sale that, or purchased, the ACTE's purchased land. So how do we get from no updates to, oh, here we have land that we're purchasing?
I would like to address that. Since December, Sean Eckergrove has been sending out monthly briefs to every board member in the district, the 5 districts. Updates and emails, the resolutions were sent. Everybody has it in their inbox to read it. So there are updates. And this purchase of land collectively from all 5 districts is money that's already been set aside. So there's not going to be any debt incurred in the land purchase. It's a cash price, it's a cash purchase. And it's my understanding that a lot of talk was done over the subject of once the land is purchased, then it opens up grant writing. It opens up where people can actually physically see something that's actually starting, which causes employers, companies, vendors to all be able to contribute. And there are people already putting money towards that effort. So, and that has all been put in those updates. If you go back and look at it.
I haven't seen it.
Conewago, great place over there, contributes every year. You can go on the ACTE website, you can look at their minutes, you can actually see contributions and what was said, what was done. It's all out there for you to look at.
Contributions to the bill, to buying the land?
To ACTE in their effort in
Well,
promoting
that's not the
programs.
same thing as the land purchase.
But there is people participating in the program because the land purchase is gonna be made. It prompts people to go move to the next step and money starts moving towards it. So, I mean, just consider, your information is out there.
I haven't seen anything, and we've not gotten any updates from you at meetings.
I have said in past meetings, look at your email, look at the monthly updates, they're there. I've even read off of the meeting.
I haven't seen them.
Yeah, so, you know, so the money's already there. And ACTI hired a new director to replace Sean. And this gentleman comes from a background of building, engineering, and he does a lot of grant writing through the state, through technical institutes across the Commonwealth where he was from. So we have somebody that's in there that's already trying to get it moving forward for us.
So once, this land purchase is done, then they're gonna tell us like how big the program's gonna be, how much it's gonna cost to have a standalone building of like a maintenance department, a nurse, safety, all that stuff. They're gonna give us the whole picture, not just the
Yeah.
programs. They're gonna.
I mean, when
So
they.
we know what the true cost is.
So when they started the building renovation over here for Littlestown, they started those conversations, 2016? Then they went through a 2 or 3 year period of developing it, putting it together. What is the needs? How do we take 3 buildings, go into 2? What's that look like? And it took time until, how many years later before they started breaking ground? You're talking about.
We had preliminary costs. We knew what it was gonna be.
But once you get.
I'm just asking,
I'm just
once you
telling
have
you.
the land, are you going to start doing these
That
analysis?
is
That's
the
what I'm
effort.
asking.
That is the effort.
Okay.
You can.
I'm
you
just
can-
wondering what the timeline is.
So part of the discussion around this, obviously land purchase is kind of the first domino in that effort. So we've always talked about this 2 years ago, a 1% increase to support ACTI debt service that's gonna come through. That's gonna be a conversation now, I think with this budget conversation, now that the land is gonna be somewhat in the near term, I believe it's like 6 to 9 months is kind of the estimated range. I'm not sure what the timeline looks like for the next, till the debt service comes through, but that's gonna be in somewhat of a near-term-ish range too. So that's gonna be a somewhat conversation if we wanna ramp this up again, another 1% preemptive efforts, some of the other member districts have, or if we wanna, kind of go wait and see approach. So I just wanna make sure that that's the context that we're looking at when we're talking about real estate taxes and any other options. So the budget that this realization is gonna come, I think now it's sooner rather than later with this first, with this land purchase. So this is just an update on that, and like I said, it's a context into when we talk about budget discussion. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was understanding what the resolution is, kind of just what's behind the land purchase and whatnot. Have some more knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it's in contract, and they have some preliminary, some traffic studies and different things that have to be done to make sure that, our commitment and obligation will actually go to the commission.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we sitting at a estimate of 70 million according to Sean? Past the land, I was reading.
There has been conversation 30, 60, and then it got back to, well, how do you come to that place of, Tom always says, you know when you know when you know. So at this point in time, it's desperately needed. Tech schools we're in a prime place to be able to start funding and moving it forward, because the buildings and through the Commonwealth that took advantage back in the 70s when the tech schools and a lot of federal money was given. Well, that was 40 years ago. Now all those buildings are aging out, and now they're starting to look to retrofit those buildings. So it would probably behoove us to think about, if everybody's coming after all those dollars, let's get our project, put a lot of light on it, so we can really get what we need, and then you don't have to try to replace something aging and put a lot of money into it, then this can be all modernized. And to today's world, today's workforce, today's issue, not only for plumbers, electricians, HVAC, nursing, diesel mechanics, how about electric plants, or all the data centers they're talking about, closed loop water systems. Well, if you can train kids to work on that, man, they're going to be in incredible demand. So there's a lot of possibilities how to stack this thing and make it so you can grow it as you can afford it. But you got to start with the land.
Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, we did this resolution in 2024, right? With ACTI and the other districts. We knew sooner or later they were gonna find land. Here's my deal on it, because I've been over there before with Sean. The problem is, when you find land, you gotta act quickly on it, because if you don't, you won't get it. And I guess they found the parcel, so they gotta act quick and get it and acquire it. But we all knew it was coming. We all knew, because we did the original agreement in 2024. And we planned for it in 2024. We did the 1% tax increase. We knew it was coming. It's no surprise to me that this is happening, because it's going to happen. But I would say for the students, because I've seen their building over there, it's needed. It's well needed, because that building over there is very small. And we're turning away students all the time over there because we don't have room. So we already knew we were going to do this in I think it's 5 of the districts still in it. Still doing it.
It's five.
I think one of them came in.
Upper Adams is a different career tech.
And also the location of the property behooves York County students to come and buy seats, because it puts us closer, and it also puts us in closer to a lot of industry over in Hanover, where they feel like now they can be participating and pulling their students through that way, which in the long run puts kids back into the community, brings families into the community, which indirectly will feed our school systems and bring our enrollment up.
So you're saying that this isn't just for Adams County students? So that could potentially push our students out?
No. You fill everything according to the requirements of the districts that participate in the process. And if there's room left over and nobody wants to fill that, you can market and bring other students in. If there's room.
But Adams County students would get
First,
first
of course,
dibs.
it's the participating districts first.
Yeah, that would be how it's all infrastructure. It's always the participating member districts. If there would be a chance of vacancy, it's right now it's highly unlikely. Career technical institutes are just really popular, and they have seats to fill. Most of the member districts would probably have a waiting list, so it would have probably few and far between for a York County.
Well, I'm sure looking at would, especially if us 5 school districts are the ones building this, and here in Adams County, and our students need it. I would hope that if we have a student that can't do it or chooses not to, that it would go to another student either in our district or up at Adams County, not York County.
And I would say 99.9% of the time that would happen a one-off time, and they would be charged accordingly to pay into that, since we are funding that program, since they have their own York County tech. So yes, I believe it's going to happen very infrequently. That it's a possibility, but
I misspoke. What my main point was that there will be industry and businesses that are going to see the benefit because you're going to have a tech center that is going to be close. That was my main point.
So at graduation, we had a decent amount of students stand up that said they did ACTI this year. How many students do we have going to ACTI, and how many have been turned away?
good question. I don't. Well, I'm not sure if you would have that. Looking at Dr. Becker.
I wanted to figure it out.
That would have been a nice question to know beforehand. We could have got that information.
My understanding is across Adams County, we're turning down about 150 kids a year that would like to get into ACTI.
I'm talking about us.
Right, I understand. But we have a portion of that. I would just add, regardless of artificial intelligence and technology and where everything's going, I believe, and I think it's common sense, that we're always going to need plumbers, electricians, HVACs, mechanics, builders, nursing, etc. I think Adams County compared to Cumberland and Franklin County, it's embarrassing that we don't have a more robust career in tech. Mr. Sullivan is spot on that, you know, we are turning down kids, and there's a real need for these types of kids with this type of education. And I do think the sins of our fathers and mothers that have put this off and delayed this for a long time, we're now at a point where it's going to be a little bit painful. We are going to have to generate some revenue. And because we're a small county and one of our school districts is with Cumberland Perry, it's either all schools are all in, or if one school backs out or isn't fully committed, it's not going to happen. That's a fact.
I think everybody is pro ACTI, I just, it would be nice to have a timeline and cost program, at least.
But I think it's, as Mr. Sullivan said, the current building at Gettysburg is not sufficient. And I do think, from all the conversations that I've heard from the superintendents and learning a little bit from the JOC and so on, we're going to start small and it's going to be status quo for a while. But as time goes on and we generate some more revenue and we generate hopefully some help from our friends in Harrisburg, maybe even DC, and companies like Conawaga Contractors and Kinsley, because there's a great need there, we're hopeful and optimistic, and I guess to some degree it's a leap of faith that things are going to happen to really make this a really nice school that we're all proud of. If you've ever been to Franklin County's trade school, and they're almost doubling it from what I understand. Same with Cumberland Perry and York School of Technology. I mean, they've really got it going. We've got some catching up to do, and it's going to be a little painful for a while.
Dr. Moyer, question on something you said about starting small and it being status quo for a while. Does that mean that we're going to be?
I think to keep the cost down initially, they're probably looking at the same programs, at least initially. And then I believe they're hoping to build on that. Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong about
No,
that.
that's kind of the direction they're thinking, is that they want to be able to build a facility that can be stacked and built and expanded in such a way in the design phase so that it is incorporated as the growth happens.
I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to spend millions and millions of dollars for the same programs we've got now.
Right.
It's the same programs initially. I think you're twisting my words a little bit. But hopefully what will evolve, it's going to be up to 10, 14, maybe 17 programs eventually. It's not going to happen overnight.
Well, our hope would be, because this was discussed a little bit back before you came on, the former superintendent was still here. And I don't know if there's any truth to the matter or not about Gettysburg wanting ACTI out of their building and all that sort of thing. Well, my hope would be is that if they do start with a smaller building, is that Gettysburg would still host the programs that we have there, or host at least 7, and then we have more, but that depends on the program cost, to Jeannie's point. Because the biggest cost of this whole thing isn't going to be just going to be the building. It's going to be all of the staff and the addition. We're going to be doubling or more the operating expenses. So that's just the things we need to keep in mind, and we need to keep. I understand what you're saying, Steve. You got to take one step to start looking into the avenues. I just really hope that ACTI doesn't try to push. Okay, we've got the land. Now this is how much everybody's raising taxes for your portion of the building, because that's not going to work for taxpayers in Littlestown.
So we'll look forward to updates on everything and analysis and program.
As I get them, I'll get
Big
them.
grants
And
and
not just
Yeah.
having to read emails that I have done, but reading updates in person.
You can also come to the meetings as the alternate.
Well, you're our rep, we are expecting updates from you.
I'm saying, you as an alternate there's other districts that are bringing their alternates so that if they have to, the regular attendee of JOC cannot make it, the alternate can fit right in and roll right on with it.
Right, but that's why we have a representative in each district to go to ACTI and then bring back to the other board members the updates and the details, so we'll be looking forward to those. If I can just piggyback on the question, let's just say, first, like I had earlier about the students in York County, let's just say for some reason, a York County school buys in one student. The next year, are they locked into that? Like, that's their spot? Can they lose that?
I want to correct, I misspoke. I was talking about, meaning to say about businesses that would want to invest in the students in the program so they benefit when the students come back into the workforce. That was the intent of my thought. And, you know, it's Adams County first. That's my understanding.
I do want to answer that question though. So as a junior, if a student would go there and they're already enrolled in that program, they would see that spot through their senior year. But then the junior spot, if we have an incoming junior, it would go back to an Adams County student.
Okay.
So it doesn't remain in York County. That student would have the opportunity to obviously finish that program, their junior, senior year, but that junior spot goes back to Adams County. I don't know if that was really your question.
No, it is, that was, yes, thank you for answering that.
If this was informative, it's gonna be an action on the June agenda to approve the resolution for ACTI to proceed with that land purchase. And as Dr. Moyer said, it's pretty much if one district doesn't approve that, that kind of stops the works.
I thought it two do, they're all committed.
I would have to verify the bylaws on that, I'm not sure on that, but we'll have to see.
I said, I've always heard that if 2 of the 5 say we want to do it, we all have to do it. It's not if
think
one
it's- I
backs
think it's
out.
the other way.
I'd have to refer back to the bylaws.
Yeah, that's what I said, we'll just jump into, so this is a budget, so this is a refresher for the board members who weren't part of FPS. If you were part of FPS or attended, this is gonna sound very familiar about what happened. This was provided in your packet. I asked you to bring those tonight, so if there's questions about what was in the packet, we had time to kind of review it. But what's on the screen is kind of what is the highlight of what's in the budget currently as we see today. So we, part of the FPS committee was to restructure how we go about assuming state revenue. So this year we have a 70% from the governor's education budget proposal. We elected to do 70% of that as a little more conservative. Generally, we do a hold harmless, which is a 0%. This year we opted to do 70. 100% seemed a little too far, so that's what we decided. We also incorporated the growth at the Mayberry development here at the edge of town. They're estimating around 10 homes a year, so we try to pre-capture those 10 home growth a year snapshot early. That's kind of the revenue side. The eliminations or the cuts was the LPN position. We have here at the district, we had a maintenance contract we were looking to extend. It was originally 6 months, then it got down to 2 months, and then it was eliminated totally. So it's just a context on that. The same with the zero-turn mower. That was a request to add an additional zero-turn mower. That was cut out through discussions with FPS as well. Some of the additions that came in through discussion was an autism classroom, so that supports 1 teacher and 2 TAs that are located here at Alvin Creek. We also talked about athletics, which is a high jump pit. We also have to talk about a uniform cycle, so I'll come back to that. We'll come back to that in a little bit here. Some of the items we need to discuss here as a board, we're a collective board here, part of FPS, is real estate tax rate. So we have anywhere from 0% to a 4.5%, which is the affluent index that the board can go up to. The other part is the transportation route. So that was kind of a 50-50 split based off of FPS committee that went to the full board. There really wasn't a discussion if that was in or out of the budget, so we want to get a clarification if that's something moving forward or not. And then the athletic programs. We had some people come and speak about lacrosse co-op. We've had some information about that and the girls wrestling from both an internal athletic standpoint and then obviously external students and community members who wish to see that program. So we need a follow-up on that if that's within the budget or without or out of the budget. So those are the 3 items we looked at having at least a determination about what's making through for full discussion at the work session meeting on Monday. So as a collective committee, I can kind of say committee of the whole here, what those three is moving forward. We can discuss some of the items of eliminations and additions or any information that needs clarification. But that's kind of like the snapshot of the budget right now. So if you want to go down to the next one here. So here's what the financials look like with that snapshot. So there's a couple things that's changed, some minor items that's changed. So obviously the budget's always moving until the last minute. So right now the revenue with all those assumptions, it's a 0% tax increase because that's the last the FP&S committee recommendation was 0%. It is 42.1 million. Expenditure is 44.8, leaves us a deficit of just shy of 2.7. Current ending fund balance as of the 23-24 audit was at 3.3, leaving us 640, which is at 1.43%. So at the bottom is what's changed. So based off estimations that came from PDE, our federal revenue went down $10,000. That's the estimation that we're going to get $10,000 less through Title I, Title II, and Title IV next year. So that's a pre-capture of that movement going downwards. We also have a tentative quote for workers' comp that will be on the board to approve that, but right now that's looking like a $7,000 decrease from prior year, so that's a decrease in the budget there. Like I said, we'll talk about the uniform cycle here right after this. Like I said, 0% tax increase. It does include all the items we just discussed, so it does include the regular transportation, it does include $8,000 for a lacrosse co-op, and it does include $11,000 for girls wrestling. It's slightly above the later slides, which captures that just to make sure that we have enough in there. If it's not quite accurate, if we have one extra kid or something, so it's a little bit extra in there. We can discuss that. So I'm gonna just default quickly to Jeff on the uniform cycle. Just give us a brief update on the uniform cycle nuances here. So I'll just briefly highlight it, and we can talk about particulars here. So with the uniform cycle, what happens is to get those uniforms here in a timely fashion, those uniforms have to be ordered accordingly. So those uniforms were ordered and are part of the cycle. So the request of having that cycle removed is not feasible at this time. So like I said, I have questions.
How much was that?
It's estimated at $26,000. So that was one of the things, was to pause that for a year. That's not necessarily feasible due to the timing and the ordering process for this year. If we want to revisit that for next year, that is something that we could be revisited for the next budget. Just in this one, the way that worked out, it did not work out. So we wanted to address that with the committee and board here.
All of them have been ordered? Or just
So as I said, I would
some?
default to Jeff if you have particular questions on that, so you can answer them accurately. So
And Jeff, before you start there, I just want to add that Jeff, our athletic director, was following the uniform cycle that was established already. And again, as Mr. Showbaker said, to get those things here in a timely manner that they can be used and so on, they have to be ordered at a certain time. So the suggestion that we delay or we lengthen up that uniform recycling or purchasing schedule, as Tom said, we can incorporate that next year, but for this year, and again, no fault of anybody's, it's just the nature of the beast. You have to order them at that early if they're going to be ready to go. Jeff, did I misspeak there? Or?
No, that's absolutely correct. Just add a little deep. Go ahead.
You're gonna say when they were ordered and everything?
Yes,
Okay.
the uniforms were ordered in March this year, and when I spoke with the vendor and various ADs, it's not atypical for athletic directors to put in uniforms for the fall season specifically. Both sports that were ordered for this year, the 26,000 that Mr. Showbaker talked about, are football and girls soccer, both fall sports. Both those the uniforms need to be ordered early. In fact, I went with BSN brand uniforms, off non-brand name. If you were to go with Nike or Adidas or Under Armour or something like that, the vendor needs February, because then they have to work with Nike and whomever to get those uniforms in on time. We went with BSN for various reasons, but those uniforms were ordered way back. And to Dr. Moyer's point, I was working under the assumption that the 25,000 is always there, because we put the cycle in place so that the board, so that we don't have these valleys and hills. Every year it's around $22,000 to $26,000 per year for uniforms on the cycle. If we get off the cycle, or then we can go into, well, I'm standing here one year and I'm saying we need $40,000 for uniforms, and I'm standing here the next year saying we need $10,000. This levels the cycle for you guys, so that you can say every year we're going to have about this much money that we need for uniforms, which again is about the life cycle of a uniform. The reason the 5-year cycle, to my understanding, was put into place, and also talking with the vendors and other athletic directors, they're about 5-year cycles on those. Football specifically, we get those repaired also. We get, not only do we keep them, we have to send uniforms back, which is part of the budget, to get stitched, to get repaired, because they get ripped and everything else as we go through the season. So.
So we have not purchased baseball and softball uniforms, correct?
Baseball and softball uniforms were purchased from the FY26 budget. The football and the girls soccer were projected already to be purchased out of the FY27 budget. This budget that I was under the assumption was going to just keep cycling in. Like, that money was always, through the board's lens, through the board's perspective, always just part of, lack of a better word, encumbered for uniforms. And we knew we were going to be on this cycle every year. So, for example, next year, I want to say we're in like the 21-ish thousand range. Don't quote me, but I believe it's 3 teams next year. 3 teams that their uniforms aren't expensive as football. Football is obviously the most expensive uniform because of the durability, the quality, and the number of players we have also. Yeah.
Another question. I assume this question will go to you and not Tom, but I saw that we pay $9,000 for uniform cleanings.
That's what I'm talking about, where
The
we send.
stitching and-
That's the stitching and sending.
Because it's written as cleanings, and I'm thinking we just purchased new washers and
No,
dryers.
that's
Okay.
probably the way it's coded in there. But that's what when we send them back to Rydell and they stitch them all up and they fix them all
Okay.
up and they do all the things they need to do. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I don't know if this is you, Tom, or if this is Jeff. Back to the lacrosse.
We'll come back to the
Okay.
lacrosse. Lacrosse is at the end, so
Okay.
we'll come back to those.
You mentioned this, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so
Okay,
this
that's fine.
right now is total overview, and then we'll go into the specific items that the budget or the board needs to discuss budgetary wise. We just want to address the uniforms so that you're aware that's back in the cycle of the budget, and then we'll talk about tax increase, regular transportation, lacrosse and girls wrestling as we go through some of these
Okay.
next slides. Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's no questions, I guess more about the uniform cycle, we'll go through some of
Thanks,
the
Jeff.
rest.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
So this slide is what is some of the driving factors towards the budget. So all of these items are more or less out of the district's hands. The only one that we can control somewhat here is a contractual service and utility standpoint. We do use third parties to help market those utility side to get us the best rate, and contractor services we do a lot of times do RFPs or get multiple quotes to get the best service. Otherwise, all those items are without the district control. We don't, from an autism classroom, you need that based off of that way the IU's moving away from certain special needs classrooms, and a lot of districts are incorporating that back in. The same thing with their special ed rates. They're also overhauling how their rates are calculated, how much they're charging for those services. That impacts here at the district. We don't have control over that. Cyber school tuition was it's heavily talked about. We're still subbing in that catch-up phase. The most recent, whatever act number it is, I don't remember, 47. Helped us some. So this is somewhat anticipated that we won't have additional growth, that we can catch up with this last time and then just kind of follow those tickers forward, because we were still in that catch-up phase. We had a lot post-COVID. Now that helped us shrink some of those kids, bring them back, or shrink those costs based off of how that act funneled out. And the last ACTI that we saw, we heard from Sean, he has some increased services, additional allied health teacher and stuff that which obviously funnels to the district as the growth. So that's ACTI. So those are what's kind of hitting the budget the hardest this year. Obviously, we have contractual increases for salary benefits, but these are the ones outside of those salary benefit kinds of items. So we're going to go to the next one. So this is kind of the first discussion. So right now we have a 0 to 4.5% tax increase that the board can go through. So I chose to do it at a 1% increments. And what it shows is what the millage rate would be per that, what the estimated revenue would be at those tax increases, and the projected deficit if everything, excuse me, if everything such as the regular transportation route, the athletics, and anything else stayed in the budget as is. So obviously those change, that kind of changes the dynamic. At the bottom you can see just a reminder what the deficit was projected at last year. Now we changed some of our budgeting practices this year, especially on a revenue standpoint. But the biggest highlight would be with some tax increase here, I believe 2% we would start seeing a decrease in that deficit. And like I said, it's a small asterisk there. We changed how we budgeted and how we budget practice on that, but that's just a highlight of beyond 2%, we're starting to reduce the deficit from where the budget was approved last year. So this is just the next 3 slides is all pertaining to tax increase. I want to get through the 3 and then we can discuss briefly about those. So Aaron, if you want to go to number 10 here. So this is a request to show based off of a $300,000 home, which is somewhat of our average here. I think it's around 280, 290. So 300 with a round number there makes it a little easier. So what the tax increase would be per those 1% of the, or 0 to 4.5, what the annual cost would be and what a monthly cost would be. Now this is in lieu of homestead, farmstead. This is just a straight calculation, and that's what that would be. So you can see 1% would be $40.62 from their prior year tax bill addition, which equates to $3.38 per month. So that's just something the board can look at and we can talk about and discuss. The next slide is homestead, farmstead. So this is what it would look like per tax rate if it's selected, what a homeowner would have reduction on their tax bill. So if we look at last year, it's virtually the same, so it's no movement prior to last year. It's a couple cents here or there because the state gave us virtually the same amount of money. So there's no additional, if you notice the last 2 years we got additional money, which had additional decrease for qualified homeowners. This year we don't have that. So those are the tax decreases for those tax rates.
If people know about the homestead farmstead.
So generally when they buy a new home, they get paperwork to do that. They have to elect to then fill out the paperwork and send it to the county. So the county,
done in January.
yeah, so the county is in charge of that. Here at the district, we just inform them to go to the county website where they can find it if somebody calls. But here at the district, we're not personally in charge of that. We need to get the funds to dig them out. All paperwork and qualification is done from an Adams County standpoint. We don't look at those applications. We are in charge of approving those. Approval and denial from county. They tell us who's approved. We then issue those tax bills and give those deductions accordingly. So there's a big formula how that works out based on the pot of money we get, qualified homes, and estimated value, and go through that. So that's the tax increase. If we want to discuss that now, if we want to continue on with some other items and come back to this last, that's up to the board on how we want to do that. If we want to continue on and come back, or if we want to talk about it now.
Well, it's kind of interesting if you look at your monthly cost, depending on what increase or what tax, what percentage. I mean, don't go through the drive-through McDonald's on a 2%. That would probably go to that, right? I mean, that's very helpful to see that at a monthly cost.
Tom, do you remember what percent of our school district has homestead farms?
I believe it's roughly around 70 or 80%. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 70 or 80. So
Thanks.
it's either a percentage to or above or below. It's like right around that 70.
And the Homestead Farmstead Act, what is that usually? What do they usually come at on the Homestead Farmstead Act? Like last year, it was like 280 something.
No, so last year, if you go, so last year we got the same amount of money from the state, and this virtually the same amount of approved homes. So any approved home is gonna get virtually the same amount of tax deduction as last year. If you go to 2 years prior, so 24, 25, or sorry, 2 years prior to this, the state gave us more money, we can then divvy it out, which increased in the year prior to that, we got more money. If you're going back even farther than that, it was pretty much status quo for a long time. And then the gambling money that they get from, that's where it comes from, gets divvied up to the school district. That's supported by the state. We have no control of that. They just tell us the number of the qualified homes, and we have to run through the formula to divvy that back out. So they held a study for a long time. The past 3 years, they give it increases. The first year, they went back to a status quo of the prior year. So we've seen 3 increases, and now 9.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the last I looked at the homestead farms, it actually went down because their revenue went down.
Just
From last year.
just so slightly. It wasn't. I think it was like maybe 2 cents. Yeah, it was maybe 2 cents. Yeah. I think we got maybe. I would have to review my notes again, but it was less than $10,000 difference.
So less than that now. Now,
Just
you mentioned that the average house 300,000. What brought that up from the 280 we originally had?
so I just did that for a round number, so we're still around that 280 mark. I think it's like a 284 or something like that's our average home, but to have a nice round number, 300,000 was easy visual to use.
Because I know in Gettysburg, their average home was 280, and I couldn't believe Littlestown was 300. So, yeah,
So we just use that as a round factor. It's roughly around that amount.
Are we gonna discuss the budget snapshot at all, or are we going to wait later on?
We can, that's why I wanted to know if we want to do more questions on real estate or any other items, or we want to move through to the rest of the budget and come back as a collective.
Well, I think it'd be a good idea to find out what people are thinking about a percentage, whether it's 0, 1, 2.
I don't think you can make that determination until you look at the budget.
I think we need to keep going.
Okay, so we'll continue on. Aaron, do you want to go to the next slide? There. All right, so now we're going to get into the athletic portion. So we had heard from Jeff. So this is Jeff's slide, just kind of put on a larger visual here, so we can see that. So this is the breakdown that was given by Gettysburg to participate in the co-op per uniformed official, as you can see there. Per boys program, per girls program, they equated that to a per student participation cost. You can see that in the bottom left. So boys is around just over $1,000, girls is $839. We have 5 boys and 3 girls, which equates to an estimated district cost of $7,889. As I said, within the budget, it was an estimated $8,000. If an extra kid, an extra boy, or an extra girl would come on, that would put us up above that mark. So that was a kind of like the wiggle room there. Because we're so close to $8,000 mark, we kind of before they kind of miscalculate that just by happenstance.
Is this a program that you sign up for so you know what your costs are for that season?
Yeah, so then this season's unique. So if I'm correct me wrong, that boys got new uniforms. So that increased their cost this year. Next year, their cost will be decreased because we're paying for a new uniform cost. Next year, those uniforms would be in their cycle. They would be down to a normal operating cost. So just like if we had somebody would join our football program next year, we would charge them for uniforms. The year after that, we would not, since we didn't purchase new uniforms. So it's the same concept we would do here for participating.
So you're saying, Tom, we have three girls that want to participate in the co-op?
So Jeff got that information, and he had, I believe, 5 boys and 3 girls that were interested in that. So yeah, Jeff, you can just sit there if you want to know, and it's up to you. You don't have to keep it.
We should have put Jeff at the table tonight.
Yeah, he does have a lot of topics today, so I just.
Yes, that's presently where we're at. We're presently at 5 boys and 3 girls. As Mr. Showmaker said, those numbers could fluctuate depending upon when the word gets out. But again, lacrosse, as I believe I shared with you last time, is not typically a sport that you just pick up in your freshman year or even in your 8th grade year. There's some skills that need to be developed earlier on for you to compete at the high school level. And if these students weren't competing in a rec program or a travel program someplace, the likelihood of those numbers dramatically going up are relatively low. Now, 1 or 2, there's always that possibility, but I wouldn't expect a huge increase in these numbers.
I have a question. I know it was discussed about parents paying for this program. So what is the cost that the parents would incur? Is that still on the table? How does that work?
Dr. Moore, do you have more information on that? For the pay to play option for lacrosse?
In regards to,
Lacrosse. So when it was discussed at the last meeting, whenever a lot of the students came and spoke that would like to play it, and a parent came in and spoke as well, and they actually said they would be willing to pay for it at least the first year. Maybe we could reevaluate. We just talked about to reevaluate in the years to come. So is that something that's going to happen? Are parents going to pay for this?
I think that's a board decision. I will tell you, I did investigate a little bit with our solicitor. As I sent you all a message today, that was one of the issues I had for Dave Walker. When it comes to Title IX issues, the balance of opportunity is the standard that we go by. Title IX doesn't really address specifically who pays for that opportunity. So from a legal standpoint, we're probably on okay ground by having parents contribute or the families contribute. But he would also say that the optics of that aren't real good. Because let's look at girls wrestling, for example. If we have a male wrestling program and it's being subsidized by the school district, but the girls have to pay, the optics of that aren't real good. And if push would come to shove, that is something that could become an issue. But he said, in his opinion, at least the opportunity to balance things out, that he thought we were on okay grounds. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
That's for the wrestling. The lacrosse would be boys and girls.
Yeah.
Would be on.
Yeah. So it's again, who pays for that is not really addressed. He thinks you have discretion on that.
Well, and back to the wrestling, I know a head wrestling coach from another school district in Adams County, and what he shared is that when girls wrestling started in their districts, they just kind of umbrellaed the girls under the boys as well. Now, obviously, getting them to their events and things like that, I think parents maybe took them, but to start that off, because they didn't have the staffing for girls, and to actually see how well it was going to go, which in that district is a pretty big program right now, but they did umbrella the girls. They were able to come to practice with the boys. We have the locker room, so I believe there was a gentleman here that was willing to coach the girls in that. So I don't know where that conversation, if that's changed any either. If that's something we can consider as well to maybe cut down some of the costs on that.
Mr. Alasakis, I will defer to you on that one.
I just want to clear up a misconception that if we go with just as what Ms. Resler said about having the girls in there, the girls would only be able to compete with the boys, because if you sent them, or if we collectively sent the girls to an individual tournament just for girls, those points would count against the boys' team, because we haven't identified a girls' team per the PIAA. Every sport has X number of events you can participate in a season. Wrestling is 22. Boys basketball is 22. Football is 10. Baseball is 20. Every sport has a number. And if you don't identify a girls' program per the PIAA, then you would be confining the girls just to competing with the boys. They would never be able to just compete in girls' tournaments. Now, with that being said, I want you to know, being fully transparent with data, that presently 14-ish, maybe 15 of the 19 schools presently in the YAIAA, where I know we're converting to the SCAC with some of the schools from Franklin and Cumberland coming on, have girls wrestling programs. Since they have girls wrestling programs, the opportunities for girls to wrestle in exhibition matches with the boys is dramatically less because those girls' programs are wrestling against other girls' programs, if you're with me. So now the question would come up, well, if I'm a girl, why am I practicing 5 days a week and why am I maintaining weight if I'm not going to get the competitions? Okay, so I just want to clear it up, because it gets weedy really quick with that.
Yeah.
But I just need you guys to
I wasn't aware of
understand
that, so thank you
yeah,
for sharing that.
you're
But it
welcome.
sounds like that it would hurt our boys' team as well.
If you under that
part.
it potentially could.
If the girls were
That's-
umbrella
if
under
it-
the boys, so they have to be separate entities.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And if it's separate entities, Title IX is not applicable.
Well, it should be.
What
We're
would be
providing,
the-
as Dr. Moyer said, we're providing the opportunity.
You say the opportunity.
Yeah.
You would say the optics of the boys wrestling team being funded by the district, but the girls wrestling team being funded by the parents. It's something the board would need to address.
Do we know for the girls that I flipped in for the next slide?
Aaron, can you one more?
Is there a legal requirement that we have a paid coach?
There's not a legal requirement. So if we go
Since we
into
did since we do for the boys,
well, here's the thing. Again, working with and talking with a lot of ADs, I've done a lot of research to see how school districts have started up a girls wrestling program. And the issue with going with the volunteer coach, there's no legal reason we can't. The concern with that is that you have a lot of inexperienced girls taking on wrestling for the first time, and the opportunity and the chances of injury are much higher. Okay, I'm just giving you facts with the girls. So with a volunteer coach, if there's an injury, it's better to have a paid coach there if we have a girl get injured in wherever we're at. That's where that's at.
have we identified an individual that would be willing to coach the team?
I spoke with this weekend. I spoke with Mr. Dell. When Mr. Dell was here at the last board meeting, or whatever it was, and he spoke and he said there's a guy out there named Mike Anderson. I reached out to him. I spoke with him, and he said he is willing to coach. And his daughter is going to be an 8th grader obviously at Littlestown, and he's interested in being part of that program. Yeah.
I was wondering if it's something that we'd started, and it's a new program at the lowest, like the coach stipend, the lowest dollar. I mean, that's almost $2,000.
So the
$1,900 difference. So
coaches,
you're on the lower end.
coaches is the same, basically same salary schedule as a teacher, so it's based upon their experience. So they would submit a resume, and you apply it, and then Mr. Arsakas would verify that their experience matches, and they would be put on a step placement scale and that's kind of the range. So I can't speak to Mr. Anderson or anybody else, another applicant that would have experience where he would fall in that step placement. So if there's no experience, yes. There's a lot of experience that can be higher in the scale.
He has no. If it were to be Mr. Anderson, he has no coaching experience. Now we presently don't have a girls coaching position on the supplemental pay scale. We have obviously a high school head coach, and that salary I just pulled up the supplemental scale is $31.68. A high school assistant wrestling coach is $21.24, and that's why I probably put the number in there about $2,100 to start with, like an assistant coach build the program. The numbers are going to be probably most likely. When I shared with you guys last time, we had 14 girls show up for open mat of the 27 girls that expressed interest when we did the survey way back in February. So that's where that 2,100 came from.
Is there's definitely a commitment. I mean, I think that open that, but there's four.
I mean, I don't have anything. And as I shared with Mr. Anderson, I said nothing's been publicized as far as the job position because we don't have a program yet, so we can't put the cart before the horse. So verbally, I think he would be on board. Once, depending upon the way the board goes, we publicize the position, depending on how the board decides to move with that. But we'll see. But I'm feeling confident that he would be good. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So the last topic before we move on is transportation. So
If I could just be transparent for 1 second with the board, I wanted to share with you guys, just going back to uniforms for full transparency, because I misquoted a little bit there. I pulled up the uniform cycle. Next year's uniform cycle, so for the FY28 budget, because we already did FY27 with the football and the girls' uniform, we're looking at $27,000. It's one of the highest ones, and the reason for that is we have junior high basketball girls who will be needing uniforms, and they weren't even on the 5-year cycle when the 5-year cycle was started way back in 22-23, so I couldn't even tell you the last time they got uniforms. Junior high cheerleading, junior high football. You're probably like, why doesn't football just pass down? It's the size thing. The junior high kids are way too small. They wouldn't fit into the varsity equipment, the varsity uniforms. And then we have both wrestling programs up for uniforms. So I think I said about $21,000 when I looked. I just wanted to make sure that I was being fully transparent with you guys. And it's around 27 for the FY28 year.
With the uniform cycle, why did we budget it that it's next year's budget, but we're buying it this year? Shouldn't we, if we're going to buy them in the previous fiscal year?
It's the timing.
Mr. Lowell, that was simply for timing because of the fall. So next year, for example,
I understand why we're buying them early, but what I'm saying is, shouldn't we start budgeting them in the prior school year?
We could flip that and order them early for the subsequent year. That would change how we handle the 5-year and restructure that. Typically, they've always been ordered ahead of time for the fall, and with the upcoming year, because it's under the upcoming year's program. And if we wanted to then order them in February, March, and have on hand, but they're not utilized, that's a whole different. It's not that we can't do it. We would just have to restructure our current model to fit that.
Well, it basically would be a matter of you put what they bought this year in this year's budget. Next year's budget, if it's the $27,000, that would be what's reflected in the next year's budget.
But we're not being invoiced until July 1, correct?
So we can structure it that way, but we just have to go about it and make sure that all the sports are being captured in a 5-year time frame. It's just a different way to capture that. It's the same information, the same cost, it's just a slightly different way of timing of how we handle those invoices. We have to get invoiced right after ordering before July, we have to get invoiced after July. It's a slight difference on how we handle all the factors and get those aligned with the vendors and everything. So it could be done, we just have to get that go ahead and we can start working that into the next year's budget and have that ready to go. Okay, so the last topic, I don't have a slide for is transportation. So we talked about transportation. I'll go back to some of my notes on that. So we talked about transportation. We had a special ed routing. We had non-pub routing. Those are required based off of how the state funding works for those. So those aren't a topic, I guess, tonight. The biggest topic is the regular ed transportation. Now, that was a request from the transportation department. Mrs. Mason's in the back there, so we have a question you can ask her. It was basically to help mitigate the number of kids on buses. So the FP&S committee got a handout and showed what those tentative kids are on those routes, what the new route would look like. We talked about cost. We talked about it limits the ride time, it limits the discipline issues, and helps with the routing. So there's specific questions, like I said, Mrs. Mason is here to answer those questions. She can answer those directly. So I just want to make sure that that's in or out.
So that's $200,000 to add the.
So the regular transportation route is 68.4.
What's other stuff in there?
The special ed, the non-pubs, and the contractual increase with Christ, that led to the additional of the 200,000, 68.4 is the regular ed route. So total was 264 of the 200 is regular transportation. And you're going to pull back up on the screen the budget snapshot format. It's slide 7 has the cost there at the bottom. 64. Here you can see it a little better. Right in the middle at the bottom there.
Okay, does anybody have any thoughts on this?
basically.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's okay, I just wanted to, since I wasn't here, at the last meeting, I just provided a narrative. Just to reiterate, my concern is the safety of our students and the safety of our drivers. We have 3 buses that are getting very, very tight, in our elementary. We have some room that we can move around our high school, middle school as well, because they're bigger kids. The elementary is my biggest concern, particularly with our in-town route. We have, well, it's not an in-town route, it goes everywhere, it's not specifically in town, but it has a very large stop. We have students that are sitting 3 to a seat, okay? Our bus seats are manufactured to be compartmentalized so that each student's 3 to a seat for elementary are safe if they're within the confines of their seats. Okay, we've got students because this rule, the rule of thumb, 3 to a seat, was created back in 1939. Okay, when our children were a lot smaller. Okay, we could fit 3 to a seat. I know both of my boys are not small kids. Not from the time they were born all the way up to now. They're large kids. My niece, very tiny. She and her friends absolutely get 3 to a seat. No problem. But that's not the rule of thumb anymore. We can't squeeze kids in because then they're hanging out. If the bus has to stop immediately, that student on the end is going to go flying out in the aisle and have an injury. Okay? That is my biggest concern, is trying to eliminate the capacity level on 3 of our buses that are very, very tight right now. So that was the reason why I wanted to add another bus. Now, back when I took over the director's position, I did an analysis and found that I could consolidate, and I dropped 2 buses. Okay, got rid of the COVID bus that we had during 2020 when we had to create that in town. So we dropped 3 buses, and we're now finding that we need to add another bus back into our routes, just for the safety side of things. When you have overcrowding, you have overcrowded attitudes too, which causes bullying on our buses, and we have a lot of that. We have it in the schools. We have it intensified. We've got the equivalent of 3 classrooms in a 40-foot bus with a driver who's supposed to be paying attention to the road. We've got distracted drivers out there that are not paying attention to the lights or the stop sign that comes out on our buses. Okay? I've actually had people call me and say, I didn't see it. Oh, yeah, it's a big yellow bus with flashing lights and you don't see this. This is my concern, because my drivers are supposed to be watching where they are, and then when they're unloading the students, they're supposed to keep an eye on the students as they're crossing, and then you've got chaos going on behind them. This is what I'm trying to eliminate, is make it less stressful for the driver. He's got enough issues to worry about, and just making it safer for our students and our drivers. Okay. That was my reason behind asking for another route to be added to our current runs.
Laura, on these type buses, what approximately what is our numbers there when everybody's attending?
We have buses that are anywhere from 50 to 66 kids on the bus. Okay, and like I said,
And full capacity is right around high
well,
60s.
again, 72s are what
Right.
we can have. It's 3 to a seat, 24 seats. But realistically, that is not.
Right.
That's not happening.
And Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, did we, in the past, I think I may recollect this, did we come back and say we wanted to start busing the in-town students again, to cut down on the parent pick up and drop off?
Well, we have always.
Oh, so we've always done it?
We've always, yeah.
Okay.
Once we started, because we had 97, as a hazardous route. So we can't allow, we have to have busing for the students in our
So the routes being hazardous, we have to provide just in case. If they're within the, is it a mile? So mile, I believe mile one way is walking distance, if they're walking distance, you don't have to provide transportation unless it's a hazardous route.
Right. So that's why we don't have crossing guard on 97 anymore.
because we have
The guy
buses
that has
now.
to be out there. for you.
Yeah, right. And the problem with that is, because of crowding, a lot of parents, kids are saying, especially in town here, the kids don't want to ride the bus. Okay, because it's so crowded, because it's so loud, because it's so, whatever the issue is. So we have more kids walking, which essentially is dangerous. I mean, we all know what happened in the winter, a crosswalk, and that's protected. Kids crossing over here from the library, from Royal Farms, from those neighborhoods coming into school are at risk because of the 18-wheelers coming through, people distracted driving. So to try and eliminate that too, if we have that other bus that helps reduce the number of students on our buses right now, would be helpful.
You said that there was a bus with a big stop. Is that stop at the end of their?
No, it's at the very beginning. So when they are leaving school, that's the first stop. It's right past the light here in town. Did I check? Sorry. And
My fault. My long legs.
so yeah, but when they're coming into school, it's the last stop. So as they get closer into school, they will pick up those students and then.
So how long is it between the school and that stop?
So it's about 3 minutes. But a lot can happen in those 3 minutes, and it's chaotic. I know Mr. Pope and I have had several conversations about, yes, it's a 3-minute ride, but this is what has happened, so.
Is there a way to change the route to make him, so it's the
That's
last
the best
stop to get to
configuration.
school and the first stop at the end of the day to drop them off?
Yeah, so it's 3 minutes at the beginning of the day and 3 minutes at the end of the day.
So what's happening with disciplinary things then, or
They get written up.
discipline happening?
Yeah, exactly, yes, so we follow our procedures. I changed that to, I made the first write-up be a direct contact with the parent, because I was hearing, well, I have no idea my child, so now you know. The second write-up, third, anything consequential, after that goes into Sapphire, and then the assistant principal will get notified of the incident, and then action will be taken, whether it's talking to the student, having a conference, detentions.
If they're causing distractions to the driver, perhaps maybe the parent should be taking them to school.
No, I agree, but
100%.
it's not always.
It's not safe.
Right, but then we have the situations where students need to be in school because of, whatever their situation is
Right.
educationally, they need to be in school. So, no, I agree as far as consequences and stuff, but it's not an ideal world, it's not an ideal situation.
And I know, if there's truancy if kids aren't in school. I know that there are schools that this isn't, something you want to make a practice and put it out there, but if the kids aren't in school, then the guidance counselor goes to the home and picks up the student and brings them to school. Or you get CYS involved. I mean, I'm sure you've considered those things and looked at those
Well, I've
things.
done that before. I've
Yeah.
had situations where students they've missed the bus for the umpteenth time, and I get called and say, can you please run and get them? Yeah, I do. I go and get those kids. That's not a discipline issue. That's just they've missed the bus or, a habit or by accident. I've had to do that, and it's not a problem, but.
That's one more thing in your day that you don't really need to do,
But fortunately, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
So Laura, you mentioned that sometimes, depending on the season, some kids get frustrated with the amount of kids on the bus, and they revert to parents bringing them to school. Is that 2%, 5%, 10%? What is that? Is that just ebb and flow? Is there any?
It is. It just depends. I mean,
Is there any data that shows? Because I know there's a responsibility when so many kids, they have to get in, and they're required to be able to you know, just for accountability. And just thought, was there any kind of,
No, because I don't always know the reasons why a parent withdraws, you know, takes their students off of our buses. I just get a form saying they're changing it, they want them to be a walker, they want them to be a parent pickup. I don't ask the why. That's the parent's prerogative to either use our service or not use our service.
how many of those requests are done in the school year?
I would say about 30 to 50, depending on the seasons. I mean, you know, during fall we have sports, in spring we have sports. We won't see a lot of those kids because parents are having to pick them up after school. But I see it more at the elementary level.
Of people pulling their kids, pulling the corner.
Yeah.
So if there's a number of kids that are doing that, and it seems like it's kind of frequent, maybe not in the number, but so wouldn't that bring some sort of relief to the?
No, because we constantly have people moving into our district, in and out, especially in our in-town areas, because we have a lot of rentals, a lot of homes that are rented, a lot of apartments, a lot of double occupancies that are happening. So we've had, I think I probably had in total maybe 4 weeks where I didn't get new enrollments this year across the board. So I'm either putting them on at the elementary level or the high school, middle school level. It's constant. It doesn't ever slow down. We're constantly adding students to our routes.
So you have more problems with the elementary students?
Yeah, they're younger. You've got, you know, our kindergartner, first grade, they're just learning about riding a bus. You know, they're learning the rules, they're adjusting. Then you've got your older students who, hey, they've been all around the block for a while. They're, you know, they think they're the big stuff or whatever. It's just normal behavior of kids. But yeah, it's, you know, as the kids get older and they understand the rules and they understand the process, they understand the consequences, they tend to calm down. And it's less frequent on the middle school and the high school.
So Laura, on a scale of 1 to 10 on a safety issue, what would you put that number?
I would put it pretty high. That's my biggest concern is that there's going to be an accident, there's going to be someone getting hurt, because my driver's concentrating back here behind him, and you know, students, instead of watching where they are going and what they are doing, he's trying to, you know, maintain the wrestling that's going on behind him, or the fights that are happening, or the arguments, or the screaming, or the yelling, and it's constant. It's a very stressful job, driving a bus.
Have the bus drivers requested this at all?
I've had lots of requests, actually, yeah. A couple of them have listened to the meetings, and yeah, they are amazed that it's even something that we're questioning, because it is a safety issue.
It's also a big cost expense, and that's why I'm asking about like behaviors, like, you know, expelling students. That the kids act up in school, they're expelled, so they need to be expelled from the bus.
No, we do that. We do have situations where we suspend students off the bus.
And what's like the disciplinary process of bad behaviors on the bus? Who does it go to? Does that go to the building principals?
Mm-hmm. To the assistant principals generally. Because they're the ones that handle the discipline.
David, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a progressive system where it starts out with probably for level 1 offenses, you have a fight or a major disruption, you're off right away. But generally, it's a progressive system where there might be some after-school detention after a discussion with them and a warning, call home to parents, and then eventually a bus suspension for a period of time. But I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, it's exactly it. I mean, we try to do the instructional piece, get the kids to understand what the behaviors are and the expectations, and then we work through them, which may include lunch detentions or suspensions. I mean, anything in between there. And you know, if we look at the number of kiddos who those conversations work with, it's a high percentage. So once those kids learn what the expectations are, and you know, and learn how to arrive at buses appropriately, it does make a difference. So we just need to with some of those kiddos, revisit those expectations and conversations, and then add the consequences on when needed. But it is a progressive plan.
Dave, have you seen a major uptick in elementary student discipline on the bus?
I'm sorry.
Have you seen a major uptick in the elementary
No,
student
it's
discipline?
pretty consistent.
On the bus?
I mean, like I said, those normal behaviors, the behaviors that we see, they're from year to year, they're the same. Again, I don't know off the top of my head about ages of when we see those behaviors, but like I said, the younger kiddos are in fact just learning how to ride the bus. We have to have the specific discussions and instructional opportunities for those kiddos to learn how to do that, and then we work with those kids when we need to, and have those specific, like I said, instructional moments, opportunities for those kiddos.
Any other thoughts?
Thanks, Laura. Thank you.
So, that was the whole of my presentation. Obviously, we had the packet, there's specific questions within the packet, we can address those, either myself or the administration team can address those. If there's any other questions we have about what's in and out of the budget, we can address those at the time. The last thing I want to circle back to are the 4 items we talked about what we need to discuss, which is the tax rate, the athletic programs, transportation. Those are the things we want to get a consensus from of what, if there's one option, if there's 2 options that need to be discussed again further Monday night and then be voted on in June. Because we do have an obligation to have a board approved budget at June. I'd like to at least get more than 2 options. Ideally, it would be one that we can then have a further discussion. If there's further discussion, and then be voted on and officially approved at the June 22nd meeting. So, like I said, I'll open it up for any questions for the admin team on their specific budgets or it's in the budget packet. We can go through that. That had additional information. That's why they asked you to bring it tonight. If you had questions when it had time to review, anything stuck out, we can address that.
Mr. Sherman. So I have 2 questions for our transportation department. One is when we have the kindergarten kids come and do like a kindergarten orientation, do we have a bus available so they can
Yep, we take them for
practice load and unload?
Yep, we do, and we take them around town and give them.
We take them on a little ride.
We do. We take them on a little run. We have the driver driving, and then we have someone going over bus rules. Not all of them, but the important ones. You stay in your seat, keep your hands to yourself, you speak low. Yeah, we go through all of that.
Do we
And we
give
also,
a copy of those rules to their parents?
well, we tell them that they can get where they can get a copy of the rules. Although this year I am going to print a copy for the parents.
We might need to
have
change that practice and give them a hand printed copy.
And actually, this year we're doing 2. We did one last year as well. They have the little the pre-K kind of program that they have. We're going to have a bus there as well. I did that last year. So they have 2 opportunities to hear the bus rules and go over what's expected, both from to the parents and of the students.
Okay, and then I actually have another question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
You gave us 2 different numbers here: 50 to 66 kids on a bus, and then you said 72 if we're going with 3 to a seat, right?
Correct. 72 is the max capacity that you can have.
For elementary.
Yeah. Because
Well,
as they get older,
don't
you
wanna
have 2
challenge
to a
us, put
seat.
72
Yeah.
high school kids on a bus.
Exactly. Because you
Okay.
can only get 2
So
to
the
a seat.
50 to 66, is that more middle school, high school?
No, that's our.
That's also elementary?
Yeah. So we've got a lot of little we've got students. Some of them that we can get 3 to a seat, but there are some situations where we cannot. We can get 2 to a seat for our elementary kids just because of our statures and how we've grown as a society since 1939.
Okay.
So are you saying 1 is the capacity maximum and 1 is where we currently are?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Right.
So the 3 routes that you spoke about working on or
Mm-hmm.
have a challenge with, we're just asking this question now. So if you don't know, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I got it. But the 3 routes, how many kids are on those 3 buses?
I don't have that paper in front of me, so thank you.
Yeah, I have my contact.
And while they're looking at that, for back to school night, and you might, I'm just gonna put this out there, so you might not know the answer, it's okay. But on back to school night, specifically for elementary, do we also hand out the rules, or do we have a copy of those bus rules in the student handbook, elementary student handbook, or anything like that?
I know they used to be in the handbook.
Yeah, it's part of the process that teachers give for back to school night. They have a little bit of information that they share with parents that
Okay.
night, rules, expectations, globally.
Sure.
Returning to school, that they share. And that's also part of an ongoing piece that would happen throughout the school year, too. Like in the mornings, we have a pilot program where there's different topics or things that go throughout the year that we're now addressing. If we're seeing an uptake on some process, we can turn that into something that we begin to speak to the students about. We share what we call the teacher level development. I think the other thing to keep in mind about the elementary, and not to overstep here, Laura, but you have to keep in mind the elementary is the largest building. You're talking about 6th grade levels, so we're not talking about high school kids that drive, okay, older kids that walk. The majority of our kids, so there's around 750 students, K to 6, and the majority of those kids are participating in our transportation. We do have a percentage that are walkers. Parents are really waiting for them. I don't know how many truly will walk by themselves, but we have parents that are waiting in the grass to get them, and then we have parents that come in and actually get their kids in the gymnasium. And then the remaining, we have 2 waves of buses that go out, for our dismissal procedure. So again, when you think of K to 5, that is 6th grade levels of students, 750 kids total in the building that are participating in some way or form, and a lot of them are bus riders. Some capacity in their elementary experience. Not all, but a good percentage of that.
Do we hand thank you for that information, by the way, thank you, and thank you. Do we hand them, the parents, a copy of, like, for the student handbooks? Do we print those out and give those to parents at back to school night, or whatever the case is?
Most of those things are with digital, just like the majority of things in society, to cut down on paper costs, those kinds of things, to save money. We try to put as many things digitally as we can together, and then we share and give access to that to the parents.
They have to acknowledge that they read it.
And then,
Well, that's what I was looking for.
They
So
have
do they sign something saying that they have a copy, or they will get a copy, or
They
they'll
sign
read
it,
it?
it says that they read it, have read and understand.
Okay.
I would add though, again, not to overstep into the department, it's not my business, but although it's little kids learning bus rules, I don't think the issue here is lack of understanding bus rules. When you've got 3 6-year-olds together in seats that are not directly supervised, and they start poking and they know that how they're supposed to act, but things just get escalated when you've got so many kids crammed on top of each other. In addition to what Laura's saying about maybe them hanging out into the seat. So it's not that they don't know the rules. It's that when they're on top of each other and they're so young and unable to regulate themselves, executive function, and understand, I need to just ignore him, he's poking me, and now we've got to fight on a bus because they can't get space from each other. I think that is the more of the concern than understanding and knowing and acknowledging the rules.
So, what started out, thank you, by the way.
Sure.
What started out a couple meetings back when this came to us as a budget issue, I thought it was really going to be a concern in regards to number of kids on a bus, et cetera, like that. But we do have one that hits the 70 mark, 70 students on one bus. But what I'm hearing more so than the numbers, and please correct me if I'm not hearing this right, but what I'm hearing is that we might start to have a problem here with possibly some behavioral issues. But right now, I guess there's no way for accountability. Like, the best way to handle this may be, to start some accountability. I mean,
Well,
They
I
gotta
would say
learn
there's
young.
accountability. I think the challenge is you have to, I don't know how many was actually run the bus like as a kid growing up, but in that experience of being on the bus, there's only one adult there.
right,
And now you've got 70 kids
right,
that is someone is supposed to be managing, and someone, certainly we talk about unstructured time.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so the challenge becomes is when you put that many groups of people together at such a young age, who, to Dave's point, like we're trying to teach them as kindergartners, we're trying to teach them as first graders, and to Courtney's point, now when you put 3 of them together, I mean now that's bus is full, and there's a driver trying to drive the bus. It creates a very difficult, I mean we've all seen the videos of what happens on a bus over time, and those challenges that come with that. Whereas, to give you an example, if there was a teacher studying on that bus, so the driver could drive, and the teacher was monitoring like their field trips, for example, those issues are not happening, those challenges are not happening. The structures, for how many kids are in the seat, and how full the bus is, they don't happen because we have a structured system. We have personnel that are supporting that system. Right now, we're trying to work in a structured situation with a school bus, with the driver trying to concentrate and focus on driving tasks. And for efficiency and cost, we're trying to get as many kids on a bus that we possibly can. And we have a couple of error runs that are a pretty high number, and we just have to make that decision on how do we balance that out a little bit. It is tough. There's no easy answer to that.
Has a thought been put into about, because the cost is just out of this world, and we're already gonna have to make cuts. So would it be beneficial to hire an aide or somebody for those bus routes, morning and afternoon? Would that be a more cost-effective way to handle this situation? So there's somebody on the bus with only that bus, it seems like that's the only bus that seems to be a problem. That might be more cost-efficient at this time to see if that works. And then, I know that adds another body on the bus, but at least it would be an adult on the bus to basically watch the behaviors. And then it can be reevaluated later. I think that may be possibly a more cost-effective way to handle it, with still addressing the situation.
There isn't an uptick in behavior problems.
What's that?
They said there isn't an uptick in behavior problems.
Well, I thought that's what they were saying, like they were talking and said that leads to behaviors and then the driver's distracted. I mean, I know that can happen for sure, but on this particular bus, is that actually happening? And if it is, that's when I'm asking, like, should we look at some other cost-effective ways to halt the situation? So there's no behavioral issues, I misunderstood
I
that.
asked Dave earlier if there was an
Okay then,
increase.
so there's no behavioral issues. Okay,
No, there's not an uptick.
okay. All right.
Now, is this bus the one that has to get in the last 3 minutes and get out the first 3 minutes?
Well, we've got 3 buses that are pretty tight, okay? So I want to at least get some students off of those buses into this new route, okay? The one particular bus that is in town that has the chaos in it is the one that is the 3-minute ride. But you would think there wouldn't be that much going on in that 3 minutes, but there is. It's chaos.
So we have 3 buses.
Yeah, so I have,
What if we had 3 aides that could, no?
Then when you're starting to get creep up on the same cost that would be around.
well, and that's the thing, it's like if I put a KT monitor on that bus, it's $16 an hour, okay? Granted, I wouldn't need probably morning on all 3, probably just the one, but the afternoons would need, and you're talking for a monitor, not an aide from the school. I don't know what that would be, probably overtime at that point. It's $15 an hour, $15 to $16 an hour to have a monitor on a bus.
So you start adding like the whole buses, it starts.
Well, I was just wondering if, when it becomes problematic on a particular bus, on a particular route, that there could be maybe an aide or not, or, somebody, just another adult. I don't know how that would look like, but I'm just trying, 200,000, I'm just trying to figure.
For 6 minutes. Yeah, that's right, for 6 minutes, basically. $200,000, the bus.
So $16,400 for the regular route. The $200,000 was the totality of special needs, non-pubs, rate increases that are contractually obligated. Of that $200,000, $68,400 was the request for regular transportation route. And yes, it was mainly to break up those numbers, to mitigate the disciplinary that is happening, so there's even less, and to help those routes from a safety standpoint. So that's kind of what the reason the request was, and that's what the board needs to decide if that's something they're willing to add to the budget to address those concerns, or if that's something Laura and I have to work through from a different angle under our current circumstances. That kind of frames how the discussion was.
So what would that look like if we don't fund it? What would you do?
That's something we would have to work out over the summer, so I can't answer that today. We would work with Joey and Dave and Laura and I would sit and see if we can structure something slightly different or handle it in a slightly different fashion to address our concerns. If they don't work, we would come right back to the board and say, hey, whatever we tried did not work. Right now, what we think is the easiest pathway to work is to just have less kids on those buses and have a route.
So if you're looking at $16 an hour times 4 buses, times 2 hours a day, for 180 days, you're looking at 23,000 total cost.
We're at 4 hours a day.
So you're gonna double that, so it'd be 46.
That's generally what the bus route tends to be, right from the beginning to the end. You know, be there for pre-check-in, be there for the post-check. Make sure the kids are on and off, they ride the whole time. Well, they would have to pick off mid-route, like they had to be there for the whole time. Which generally what we always estimate is 4 hours per route. That's usually right to some are 4.5, some are 3.5. The average is around 4 hours to both morning and afternoon routing. So yes, we could try the 80. I think we're trying to go out having less people on the bus rather than an additional person on the bus. Something we can explore. That's what the board is willing to look into.
Okay. I think I'm probably not the only one that's confused. I'm trying to understand this because I feel like we've gone from behaviors to crowding, that they could be crowded, there might be behaviors, but in talking with Mr. Goodenow, there isn't really an uptick in behavior. So I'm confused and feel like
I think there's a steady level of buses leaders. The question is, have we experienced an uptick? No, but there is a steady level of bus behaviors that can lead to awfully dangerous situations that we're trying to proactively prevent. There is a steady stream of bus referrals. The question was, have we noticed an uptick? No, it's the same amount of bus issues, but they're compounded by the fact there are so many kids on the bus.
So if we could maybe get an aide in there to watch some of those behaviors, that would be a lot cheaper than doing another bus route.
I don't know if it would be. It depends on
Would
how-
it be cheaper?
It depends on.
But that's something that you guys could go and look at and maybe bring back to the board
We could
as a
look at that.
whole to see.
So we could go through a Christ transportation route, through a monitor, and look at what their skill set and scope of work is, and what service they would provide, and or if we had a district employee and either current employee or a brand new employee, what that cost was and what their job duties would look like. It would kind of get twofold. We would go from Christ transportation because they can provide us monitors at a $15, $60 an hour rate, or we could go with an internal candidate and look at those nuances. If that's what the board's entertaining.
Or some PTO volunteers, or
No,
Mr. Coke an hour for a day.
I actually tried to recruit some volunteers of parents of students who I had to have conversations with. Well, y'all need to get monitors. I'm like, well, you know what? You as a volunteer could always come in for, the hour that it takes to ride the bus. No one wants to do that. No one wants to be a bus driver. No one wants to be a monitor on a bus because it can be crazy.
We have cafeteria monitors, right? Maybe those people would be interested in getting in the day.
So we would have to.
We don't have cafeteria aides at ACES?
Yeah, so we do.
Yeah.
So the caveat would be if they would trigger for hours, then they fall into a full-time provide 4 hours and plus would be 2 or 3 hours, that would trigger a full-time, it would be a full-time employee at that point. We had those in the past, we used to have bus monitors and cafeteria monitors. We've then not done that to then go into that leverage of being able to be part-time and utilize those non-attached benefits to those full-time employees. So we can, but then it triggers cascade of the rest of it. You have to kind of vet those out.
Yeah, we gotta explain the options.
So that's just, instead of adding an employee to our payroll, this was and Christ Transportation, so I would say another reason we did this is if the route in 3 years is saying the kids contract, we can remove that route just as easy as the board can add it. So if we add an employee or the monitor, would be the same way for the workplace monitor, but an employee is different nuance on how that happens. So that's another reason why we're pushing for a contract standpoint in Christ, so the board can then just say, we no longer do this. Next year, we say, if it didn't work, we correct. So that would be a preference to go through a contractor route rather than a regular employee's route.
So if I'm understanding everybody, we're thinking about having you guys come back with some more options, just give us some additional.
We will look at what a monitor costs from a price standpoint and what an aid would cost from a district standpoint.
So we can,
and we'll have all three options, and that can be part of that discussion Monday about what's in and out. So that's one for transportation. I guess we want to go through lacrosse and girls wrestling. If I didn't
I just maybe just a thought. My guess is you have somebody on the bus that has authority and is not going to tolerate the behaviors. In a few months, that should be nixed. So I'm thinking perhaps maybe that, I don't know they need to be a full-time employee to go through all the benefits and everything, but
I'm just saying is if we're using existing employees such as the cafeteria monitor that was mentioned, if they ride the bus in the morning and the afternoon, they would be subsequent to benefits based off of the amount of hours they work by the federal standards of labor act. So that's something we have to follow and we have to do. So yes, if they trigger a certain amount of hours per week, which they would in this case with the cafeteria monitor, we would then have to give them benefits, which was a significant additional cost.
what does everybody else, I mean, I don't want it to go based on my thoughts. I mean, I'd like to hear what everybody else might have to say on that. I mean,
So you were thinking that after a couple months, kids would learn to act right and you wouldn't need the person on the bus anymore. Is that what you were originally saying?
yeah, like, and if they're not gonna act appropriately, then they don't get
Kids come in and
transportation provided for them. There has to be some accountability here.
that gets in a whole, that your stage of disciplinary and all, and what you do, and, I mean.
But when it comes
how do we
to
fit
instructor
within that?
driver,
Just pure opinion, not being an elementary person, I try not to ever confuse that providing a consequence removes behaviors in the future necessarily.
not always.
No, I'm just saying in general. And you are dealing with this case with young children, so I don't think we want to be in the practice, in my opinion, just mine, not in the elementary school, of a long-term removing children from the bus as their punishment for misbehavior because they struggle with executive function as a 6-year-old. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. Like I do agree that it helps if you have somebody there, but correcting the child, you might be correcting that depending on the child. You could be correcting them every day on the same behavior for weeks and beyond. Just in my experience, just one perspective.
I get it.
So, you'll look at some of these options? and
Yep, so I have
visit it?
look at needs and or monitors on those buses, see what those costs are. I'll bring them back Monday, or I might even send them out if we get them quickly enough. I'll send them out to the board as a follow-up before Monday night. I don't know how quickly we can gather that here Tuesday to Thursday.
I think we can also get the exact timing of the bus route. So, or is it the person an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon, or is it, so we can get some exact timing to get some pricing on that too, when we look at KT or having one of our own TAs. I think that really helps, because we're using ballpark numbers of 4 hours, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. It might be 3, 3.5, so just trying to narrow down that number to get a final.
We'll gather all that data.
Yeah.
I'll try to shoot it before Thursday, send it out to the school board. If not, I'll update that Monday night.
And just to be clear, to sum this up, this is not a issue on the bus where we're overcrowded to the point where we have to do it? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, this is a preemptive.
Okay, preemptive.
To address those concerns we're seeing on the bus.
Okay.
It's not a requirement.
So we're not at the maximum and we had,
Correct.
I have 2 buses that are very close to capacity.
okay, so you
Yes.
have 2.
I have
And when you say
2.
capacity, do you mean 72 or do you mean 55 to 60?
When we're talking elementary, like I said, there's no way for me to tell you exactly, because depending on the size of a child, whether they can
Right,
get
right.
3 to a C or 2 to a C.
So it's like fitting so much.
So here's one with 7.
Okay,
67 kids, 67 kids. So
Okay,
these
so
blue ones are the ones that are high target. Kids all,
Okay.
particularly there's ones that are extra targeted.
This is kind
This is what I provided. I just don't have a.
Yeah, can I get one of these?
I can send this out, Lord, I worked on this and have this capacity, so like here's the estimated capacity and what the new routes would look like. That's like this is how these are. Yeah, I'll do it. So I'm just gonna resend it. So the next topic would be, we'll go through the athletics, so I believe unless there's a different option on the table would be to address the co-op, the cross co-op, but make it a pay to play by parents. Just wanna see if there's a different option on the table on that. Boys and girls co-op for the cross. The district would agree to that, but make it a pay to play for parents to pay for those costs.
I think the parents are willing.
That would be, that's up to the district to decide for the length of time. A co-op is generally 2 years in length, so we have to go minimum 2, whether we want parents to pay for the first year and the second year the district pays. It's up to the board to decide. Yes, we would look, that would be 100% of the cost, and that would work out with whatever the call per pupil cost would be with Gettysburg. So that's what the parent would have to.
I know that parents that made public comment, who said they would be willing to invest the first year.
With the being willing to reevaluate the second year.
Yes, yes.
I just want to make sure I heard, I didn't hear anybody else bring up a different, so that I'll show it within the budget, because the district doesn't, I won't show it in the budget, we'll just know it's going ahead, because we'll pay for it up front and then collect that money from the parents afterwards, because Gettysburg will bill the district will then bill the parents and request those funds back, so we'll get their information through all the signups and everything, to that back. That's, I just need a head.
We'll get something that says that they know that they have to pay.
Yeah, so that'll be all part of the startup cost with Mr. Alsakis, talking to those student athletes, making sure we get their personal information to be able to send the invoices home. They'll know it, acknowledge ahead of time that there is a cost.
Can I ask you a question? If they're gonna pay the first cost, do they have to return their uniforms in? I mean, that's something you have to do, right?
The Gettysburg uniform?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a property of Gettysburg, we were just paying for a per pupil cost.
So,
Because Gettysburg would pay for that, if they're gonna, with additional and wear and tear on that wouldn't have that.
okay, so, Aaron, what's your thoughts on what you just talked about, the athletics, the kind of the parents paying the first year?
I agree with that.
Okay.
For the cross, for the Stone or
Yeah,
cross, right?
just the cross right now.
Yeah, that's, I would like, yeah.
Donna?
This is for boys lacrosse?
Boys and girls.
5 boys, 3 girls.
What
What
happens,
slide number is that?
here's my challenge, what happens if we can't pay for it next year?
The board could acknowledge to say pay to play for the second year as well.
Are we gonna ask for a full commitment by the parents? I mean, we're paying it forward first, and then they're gonna pay us back?
So the Gettysburg is allowing essentially 5 boys and 3 girls to participate in the team. But the per pupil cost, I believe it costs for 2 years. I don't know the nuances if some kids back out the second year, how that works. If that changes the per pupil cost, that default to Jeff on some of those.
It's just purely per pupil cost. They'll divide their costs by the number of students that are participating, and then equally, that will be charged to our guys want to proceed with the collection of funding would be your decision if you want that money prior to, because I doubt there'll be cuts. If there were going to be cuts, why would you be doing co-op? You have numbers. You don't need us. So, that would be your decision. But to what Mr. Shoemaker said, what would happen is either the money's here or we collect the money later. Either way, Gettysburg would bill Littlestown School District and we would pay them the costs. Now, again, when those costs hit our books, that will be up to you guys.
When do we have to make that decision? Like now?
For the co-op, we would have to do it before this, when the season would start.
Yeah, Gettysburg, yeah, I talked to Mr. Mr. Gott's going to be an AD at Gettysburg. The sooner the better. I told him we would know somewhere in the beginning of July how we're going to proceed. The budget is finalized.
So is that just for clarity, is that a contract that needs to be board approved?
The co-op?
Okay, so that would be, we'd look to have on June, since it's, we're looking for a pay to play from a parent standpoint. It's not a budgetary issue, so it's not necessarily part of the budget timeframe, but we would look for board to approve a co-op with the pay to play and basically tell the community that's what we're doing, signal that at a public meeting and vote on that in June so we can have that ready to go for spring school.
It also needs to be approved by the PIA.
There you go.
So then we need to, can we change it, the thought to, it's pay to play, reevaluate the second year, but parents have to, we don't wanna put back cost expense on the school right now, the district, that the parents have to pay ahead of time.
So the reason it was on tonight is if the district wanted to pay the 100% of the cost, it would be a budgetary impact, we have to know that ahead of time.
Right.
Budget, since it's essentially being, we have to hear from everybody, but if it's off that and his parents pay to play, that we just need it from a contractual standpoint and approve. That can be a verbal acknowledgement by the board at the next meeting on what the process is gonna be, how the district's operating that co-op.
So no matter what we do, it still has the approval of the other organization.
PIAA, though you said.
PIAA, and I mean, the Gettysburg board has not officially approved the co-op yet either, but I mean, all likelihood they would. I couldn't see a reason they wouldn't, but I believe that has to, once we move to Gettysburg, move. Dr. Moore, I mean, you may have more of that.
Okay, so,
If that's the understanding, it's pay to play.
Okay, so then.
yes.
So we'll
Yes.
proceed with that, we can have some follow-up discussions if there's any other questions on Monday night, about that. Yes. And give the public their answers on how that works. So girls wrestling, is that how we want to do that? We want to work at, the full cost on the district, if we're looking at hybrids or what that looks like.
With that, because we're not charging the boys, we can't charge the girls, correct? Or we'd have to change some of the boys stuff, like, how would this have to be the same as Title IX?
Yeah, so, let's say that's why you want to explain the nuances.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
Okay, you said it's not good
explain
optics,
this.
but it wouldn't be a legal issue, if I'm summarizing that.
That's correct. The Title IX deals with the opportunity, so the opportunity is there. Title IX does not really, according to Dave Walker, address how it's paid for. So technically, we're okay, and as Mr. Lovell said, from an optics standpoint, it doesn't look great, I'll put it that way.
So, are you sure of the ask? And Ally, what are your thoughts on this?
What's the question?
The question is, the girls wrestling, are we funding it?
In what,
So,
I mean, is it under boys, is it separate, is it they're wrestling girls, is it?
Girls wrestling is separate.
Mr. Osage said that to have it underneath the boys creates a whole lot of.
Yeah, I know that.
So it would be.
That's what I'm saying, what are we agreeing on?
So the proposal right now is to have a separate entity, and whether it's the district is authorized authorizing a separate entity, and then if the district's paying for it, or else the parents pay for it. So that's two forward questions. Is the district authorizing to be a,
Over 11,000.
Aaron, can you go to the last slide? for me?
10,450, 12,5.
That's 14, or well, that was 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, 27 singlets.
14 came out and actually did the,
So that's providing that there's 27.
Yeah, so that was just estimations. We could pull that down. Jeff, what would be the singlet? So you had 20, I think estimated 27.
Yeah, the singlets, I estimated about $65 per singlet. When I again talked with ADs, we're in the ballpark. I mean, they could be $75. You know, it's a budget. We don't know exactly. The one thing I want to share with you guys is you guys work with the pay to play is you have to take into consideration and have wiggle room for free and reduced meal students. You know, if we have X number of free and reduced meal students in the co-op, or depending on how you guys go about it, I'm not sure how that impacts the pay to play with free and reduced meals. But it's something that you may want to consider in case there are students that do that. Of those 8, it could change the cost a little bit, but that's with a budget. You know, it's not going to. You just want to be ready for that. I don't have numbers on that.
That's something we would have to work through.
I mean, I don't want to throw that weed, but I just want to be transparent that you guys know that there's going to be a range. It's always approximate. I can't give you the hard number.
And this was 14 girls that came out, like between 8th and 12th grade,
Okay.
varsity.
So it's just easier for me to see.
Yeah. You're getting a workout
Then be buried behind it.
Sorry for all the questions.
No,
Just trying to
you're good.
understand.
Great questions. So the numbers are about 75% junior high students, 25% high school students. When we look at the going into next year, so if I look at my numbers right now, 8 of 12 girls that responded when we did open mat are in the middle school, which would be 75%. And if I look at the actually it was 29, so again I misquoted myself. 21 were junior high and 8 were JV or varsity, so that equals about 73% of these students. So when we're looking at the program, we're looking at a program that's feeding itself. If we're getting a large number of 7th and 8th grade students coming in, that program, I would assume, that the girls enjoy it, and as we plant the seeds, grows. And the enjoy goes back to all the things we talked about. They got to compete. They're just not going to want to show up and practice 5 days a week and cut weight to not wrestle. And you know what has happened in other schools, and as again I shared with you way back, the research is showing that there's just exponential growth with girls wrestling right now. It's hitting a whole nother demographic of students, and as I shared, of the girls that the 29 that responded, only 3 are basketball players. So it doesn't impact our basketball programs, which sends a real loud message to me. We're hitting a whole other demographic. And when you look at the research, students are more successful in school, their attendance, their discipline, their grades when they're involved in interscholastics. There's 27 more girls potentially that, Dr. Becker and our teachers are going to see a lot more success with.
So have you, Jeff, thank you. Have you heard anybody from the community that has said, look, we really want to do this, we want to see this going, and as they start a program and infusing the community effort, parents, what would that look like? Do you have an idea of how that would be?
Could you rephrase that question? I'm not sure what you
Okay, so what I'm asking is put a program together. There's people that want to possibly, parents that want to participate in paying for it. Is it be like a similar co-op with the lacrosse, or is this
Well, I've had no discussions with anyone on girls wrestling regarding pay to pay.
Okay.
We're
Zero.
playing for boys wrestling, you can't do that.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm with Dr. Moyer. The optics of that would be pretty,
I was a
pretty
little bit
tedious
not
for you
sure
guys
what
if you guys went down that road.
Yeah, no.
I don't, that would be your call though. But
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Alsopis, if you
Yes.
wouldn't mind answering, how do we factor ticket sales revenue into offsetting these costs?
Well, okay, so likely, if it's if we have girls wrestling any exhibition matches, if we were lucky enough to find teams that could wrestle exhibition, it would be zero, because what would happen is the parents that would come in, well, it wouldn't be zero. You'd have some girl parents coming in, so 4 parents, 5 parents, 10 parents, whatever it is, coming in. So you're looking at $50, $60 for those parents to come in to see their child wrestle those if we have exhibition. Now, if we go to tournaments and that type of stuff, it's zero, because we're going to a place to wrestle. So it'd be very, very small numbers. Because again, like I said, let's say the boys have 10 duels at home, and we have separate programs, and we're just happen to have some exhibition matches in between junior high and varsity. My guess is not all 10 of those schools are going to have exhibition matches for us, because they already have established programs, and their girls are already wrestling in their own dual meets at their places or at home.
Okay, so, Ally, want to go over the program? Gene? Wayne? We'll circle back. Connor?
I think it would be great, but I don't think we have the money.
No?
Yes, I do.
Mary? Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, Wayne? Circle back.
Potentially those numbers are high, because
I think so.
the coach could be less, uniforms could be less if it's not 27, so.
Yes, we would go off the actuals. Right now, it's all, just like Jeff says, a budgetary number, we're just trying to estimate those costs.
And we're in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. It's not going to dramatically change your budget or save you a ton of money either way.
That's it's not gonna be that high.
Just so I understand, people who said yes were agreeing to the district funding those costs.
Correct.
Yes.
Just wanted to swing back. Okay, and then the last biggest topic, I believe, is the tax rate that we want to show. Like I said, I'm willing to do,
Didn't anybody want to have, I'm sorry,
we can talk about other items.
mean,
if you want.
We might have to go to executive session.
had, I had cuts. I had cuts. And now,
was going through.
I'm just saying, the rest of the board obviously did something over the last couple of weeks, and they,
I met with Judy and Tom last week, but I don't know, we probably need to go to executive session, I'd imagine. I'm not sure.
Well, let's answer this first, if you could, or state one.
Answer what?
It's one or the other. Yep.
Answer what?
So the tax increase, so that was the last.
I don't think you can determine a tax increase until you look at the whole budget.
I'm just asking, you know, okay, so,
We want executive session with the call.
Is Janelle the only one that has anything to talk about? Anybody else? Is yours executive session or is it here? I don't know.
Paul? All right, I'm sorry.
Do we have to do that now, or we can come back? Depending on what we're talking
You can
about.
just do it.
Okay. So,
Is it in relation to personnel, I'm assuming, you know?
Yes.
yeah, so we're gonna meet the executive session and considering personnel.